Here we go. We start with President Biden leaving his California vacation for another one in Delaware.
Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump both hit the campaign trail in several key battleground states.
And Peter Doocy is at the White House with the latest. Hey, Peter.
Good morning. And if you saw this photo, you would assume that President Biden is here, walking out of the Oval Office and through the Rose Garden for a private moment with his partner, the vice president, especially since the caption says, "We're working for you." But the president is not here. He left his California vacation for a Delaware vacation. Vice President Harris is in town, but we don't expect to see much of her till Wednesday and Thursday. She will be in Georgia both those days, her only battleground of the week. Trump plans to visit Virginia and Michigan today, Wisconsin and Michigan Thursday, then Pennsylvania Friday. Their first in-person meeting is supposed to be September 10th for an ABC debate. The Harris campaign is now telling Politico that unlike last time for Trump v. Biden, they would prefer the mics to be hot the entire time, no muting. An advisor is quoted as saying they think Trump wants the mics muted, but there might not be a debate at all. After an ABC interview of Tom Cotton yesterday that Trump did not think was fair, he is questioning now on Truth Social why he should participate in an ABC debate at all. Back to you.
Peter, I just got a text message from your mother. Do you have a cold?
No, I think I just had something in my throat. I'm good.
All right.
Mom, thank you.
All right. Just one other quick question for you. You talked a little bit about the potential debate on September the 10th. They might leave the mics hot. Kamala Harris, in the meantime, one of her press people was on yesterday with Howie on Media Buzz and said she definitely will do an interview before the end of this week, and that she has done 80 interviews so far this year. Does that little 10 seconds that you talked to her a couple of days ago, does that count as one of the 80?
If it does, we should talk to promos and hype it as an exclusive. No, but if you're the Harris team, it's smart because they pushed it off to the last 3-day weekend when people are not paying attention before the election. And so if there is an issue, if she makes a mistake, it's going to get a lot less scrutiny right away than if they do it after the first week of the NFL football, like on that Sunday night.
Well, Peter, her campaign is saying that she's changed her mind on some of these issues, like fracking. She's no longer against fracking, or she's not going to take away our private health insurance companies. Who was saying that? Is it just anonymous sources, or did you get names of people in the campaign? Like, how do we know she really feels this way? Because we haven't heard from her.
She has not said that out loud. I have emailed, as things have come up, many different people that are working in Wilmington, and they will tell us that on background, which basically just means on behalf of the campaign, they will tell us that her position has changed. But we have not heard the words come out of her mouth. And depending on who she does the interview with, we might not. Mm-hmm. Because the way that a lot of these interviews go, and based on what the convention program was, chances are it could be a lot about Trump and not a lot about how different her 2019 statements are to 2024.
Well, yeah, it's coming up without her, even on the Sunday shows, which you would think would be friendly environments. So I can't imagine outside Oprah or Rachel Maddow how that would not come up. I mean, Lester Holt and these guys, Jake Tapper, they seem to want to ask. They're asking those questions hypothetically because he won't appear on their shows either.
The reason I think that is because for the last 4 years, I keep like a running list of questions for Joe Biden, and I have watched interview after interview that he has done sit-downs, and pretty much none of them get answered.
Yeah. And
asked or answered.
Indeed. And do we have any idea who the person might be who gets the interview?
Not yet.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Peter.
Glad you're healthy.
Yes, it's been 36 days since she jumped into the campaign and has not had a sit-down interview. People do have questions about her policy because we heard her at the DNC. She just bashed Donald Trump, and they all talked about abortion, the abortion issue, but never talked about what her policies are going to be. If you go on her website, her policies are not listed. Tom Cotton sat down on one of the Sunday shows, and he says we all deserve to see her in an interview. Listen.
When she campaigned for president, in her own right, she did in fact promise things like decriminalizing illegal immigration and taking away health insurance.
But that's a position she's clearly changed on, and she has said she has changed. Yes, she has.
No, she has not. John, she has not said that. She's not. You pointed out, Senator Sanders, repeatedly things that her campaign has said. Anonymous aides speaking on background to reporters, has said, well, she no longer believes these things. Okay, maybe she has changed her position on things like taking away your health insurance and confiscating your gun. If she has changed her position, she owes it to the American people to come out and say in her own words when she changed and why she changed. That's one reason why she needs to address the American people and speak to these questions.
Yeah, one of the many reasons.
Right.
See, and I laughed too because this guy, another one of these pollsters, said, I don't think she should talk to press at all because she's doing good the way she is right now. She should just be talking to the people. She doesn't talk to the people. She talks to them, doesn't hear any of the questions. She's not listening to the people. She goes and gives a speech in front of a supportive crowd.
Through a teleprompter.
Right, through a teleprompter. And by the way, I'm not too sure. Her momentum is done. Trump had it in July. She had it in August. But now it's flat-footed tie. And in places like, I don't know if you've seen the Siena New York Times poll, in Georgia, Trump's up 6. So there's a push, and there'll be a bump from this. But after this, I think people are really going to have a discerning look at what exactly she stands for, because you can't even dispute what she stands for because you don't know what Kamala Harris you're fighting. Are you fighting the vice president? Are you fighting the senator? Are you fighting this new person who's running on Donald Trump's issues, like strong on the border, fighting crime, a strong defense, red, white, and blue? Excuse me, it's like David Plouffe came in there and said the reason why Trump is popular is because of these things. So let's give him to Harris. And I think the most egregious example was the tips. But I didn't know that was the tip of the iceberg of the theft of the Republican Party.
Well, both sides know that the debate, aside from this interview that's supposedly going to happen in the next 5 days, the debate could change the trajectory of the race, because after this interview, then there's going to be one debate that we know of, although Donald Trump is suggesting maybe he might not do it after whatever he saw on ABC. So ultimately, if that changes the trajectory, the less she says, the better. So I get what the pollster is saying, but at the same time, Tom Cotton is right. All we know, the only words we have heard her that have come out of her mouth were things that she said about her policy in 2019. And for Peter Doocy to just say that he's heard from people close to her in the campaign, but it's all on background, that is how they are programming the press. They're saying, okay, on background, this is, she's changed her position. But we need to hear her say, I've changed my position.
How are we supposed to believe that? Joe Biden ran on being a moderate. He was going to unite our country. Our country has never been this divided since I can remember. It didn't work. He lied to the American people. He ended up voting in such a progressive manner. And how do we know she's not going to do that? That's the way she stood throughout her entire political career.
Here's the hope. They keep booking people like Tom Cotton, Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance on the other networks where they get their point out. These hosts have nothing to stand on. Jonathan Karl is a pretty adept guy, but he has no follow-up because he knows Tom Cotton's 110% right. You could sit there and say, why did Donald Trump didn't say this or that the whole time? But at one point, when you invite other people on, you're going to hear it. And there's independents and undecideds that watch those networks. And when his surrogates go out there, the Governor Burgum and others, Marco Rubio, when he comes back, I guess he's on vacation now. When you book these guys and Lindsey Graham, you get the other side.
You do.
So that's the hope for. Meanwhile, also I have to say this. Front page of the New York Times, the first gentleman is a sex symbol. Please. I've seen
second gentleman.
Second gentleman. He wants to be the first gentleman.
Okay.
He says he's a sex symbol. When Doug, what's his last name? Emhoff is a sex symbol. I think that goes beyond reproach.
And this is
in terms of biases. It's the third story in the New York Times, sex symbol, Doug Emhoff.
That surprises me. I don't expect that from the New York Times.
What was the lead story?
How great? No, the other story was how Kamala Harris is not from Berkeley. She's from Oakland because it makes it seem rugged and tough.
Okay.
As opposed to Berkeley, which is berserk.
You're spending a lot of time in the New York Times. We have a website, foxnews.com.
Got to be prepared.
Just saying. I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.